Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible, one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the most amazing authors of a new book that we have coming out. This one is Shaman Heart, Sacred Rebel. This is the second book in a series from lead authors Stephanie Urbina Jones and Jeremy Pajer. And just quickly, a really big thank you to you, Stephanie and Jeremy. We would not be here without you. Your big vision and mission for this book, for the series of books, and also for the safe healing container that you brought all of your authors into when you brought us to Teotihuacan, Mexico. And it was a vision beyond my imagination that ended up in such an amazing place for me, for the projects, for the way that I was thinking about them. So I just love you guys so much and want to say it's such a big thank you. And now I get to introduce these amazing people to you, part of our stellar author expert cast for this book. Glenn Schuster, AKA Singing Wolf, is the co-founder of Kuroko Sacred Healing with his wife, Amy Takashima. I also have Kimberly Millstone, an astrologer who facilitates empowering perspective shifts through chart readings. Mary Rose Kent is your transformation guide into living a life in purpose on purpose. And Suzanne Rowland is a light spirit earth walker. I love that title, Suzanne. A seeker, witness, and practitioner of the divine order of listening to our ancestors. You guys, I cannot wait to share these authors with you. If you are ready for a transformation, get ready. Here we go. Glenn, you're going to start the party off. Tell us about your chapter.
Well, I wrote chapter 7. It's called Shattered and Scattered, How I Retrieved My Lost Soul. And basically what it's about is multiple traumas that I believe from childhood up through Vietnam and beyond. And I believe each of those traumas took away parts of my soul. And it's basically about what I did to retrieve those parts.
Glenn, was this the first time publishing your story?
It is. Yes, it was.
Tell me a little bit about how that was for you.
Well,
or is going to be, I should say.
It was difficult, to be honest. It was kind of scary. We got back from Teotihuacan and I went a week and still didn't have a word on a page yet. And I think it was mostly about telling myself that my story wouldn't be as good as everybody else's, comparing. Yeah.
The good old comparisonitis. So I appreciate people sharing their process too, because we had a great handful of authors in this author cast who this is their first time really attempting to write words down for other people to read. And it's a far cry from journaling your own secret thoughts, knowing that nobody's going to read them. And so I appreciate you, just talking about that difficulty. I think that obviously you guys come over on the other side of it. So I'm going to stick with you, Glenn, for just a second on this. You come onto the other side of that comparing, is it good enough? Is it, this, is it that? And you get there. And is there anything else you want to say about that process that you think was important for you personally?
Yeah, part of what was going on was I was worried about what people might think about me when they read the story. And what I know to be true is it's really none of my business what other people think about me.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a good life motto in general, all the way through. Glenn, thank you for being here. And thanks to all four of you, really, not just for saying yes to this, but for stepping up to that challenge I gave you, and when I said, hey, we're going to write these stories and they're going to be vulnerable and it's going to change people's lives. I appreciate whatever you were feeling at the time, I appreciate you saying yes to that and stepping up so brilliantly. Kimberly, you next. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
I wrote chapter 15, Loving Yourself the Most, A Path to Wholeness. And my chapter was about a pivotal moment in my life about 3 years ago when I recognized that I had put myself last in my own life in a very big way. As a mother of 5 children and as a wife of going on 34 years now, it was always my focus on other people, especially my family, that drove my actions throughout my lifetime. And there was a point when my life said enough of that. You need to presence yourself in your own life first, and then build everything around that. And that moment led me on a vision quest of sorts. I was able to compact my life into a car and take off on a 6,000-mile journey across the country that lasted for about 2.5 months. And I learned so much during that time of just allowing myself to be with myself and not think about anyone else during that time. And it was also during that time that my deep knowing that I was actually an astrologer came in and set me on a new path once I got home.
I remember reading your chapter, and as a fellow parent, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she did that. And then the other part of me was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do that, and I think to Glenn's point, for me, it was the thoughts that were a lot about, whoa, what will other people think if I prioritize my own healing journey before my children, before my husband, before all the people that were supposed to come first, right? What else do you want to say about that?
Yes, it was also a vulnerable moment for me to put that story on a page, knowing that my children would read it, because the last thing I want is for them to feel that they were not so important in my life. And what I also know is if you don't allow yourself to be the most important person in your life, your well runs dry. You don't have enough resources to give to those people you love. And not only that, but you model an unsustainable way of being. And, my kids were mostly grown by the time I wrote this story. So I eventually realized that this was the story they needed to hear the most so that they could not repeat that pattern in their own lives. Once they are getting, starting to think about getting married and having their own children, I did not want to carry that down to the next generation. And I had modeled that for them their whole childhood. So this was my way to break that chain, so to speak. And I find now that it's the most loving gesture I could do for them and for anyone else that I love.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I think I love how you're putting that we may be modeling something totally unsustainable, and we really need to wake up to that. And you all are dropping such incredible big gifts of awareness. And that was one of them for me. It's like, oh yeah, that's a perspective, right? And we could just shift our perspective a little bit and realize what we're doing. And then I think so much about my kids in your chapter and wanting them to have a very sustainable lifestyle that doesn't burn them out and put them last and all the things, right? So
Exactly.
I loved those pieces of your chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Mhm.
Mary Rose, how about you? Tell us about your chapter.
Yes. Hi, my chapter is number 22, Week with Wordlessness. My chapter is not what I thought I was going to write about, but lo and behold, in that magical space in Teotihuacan, I pulled out what my heart needed to show myself, and I discovered why it was I couldn't speak most of my life and why I am so passionate now about people having their voice, because I went back into my childhood and realized for the first time like where I lost my voice truly, and how much energy I'd given away to other people, because of all the lies that I was born into and all the protection that my family had to keep themselves from being judged or in trouble or whatever, and just that lack of freedom that they had, and then they started doing it to me. And so it's a lot about my sexual trauma journey and why I ended up in so many abusive relationships and gave so much of my energy away, and my ability to find my words again and to finally be there for myself, and now to be able to be a leader who helps people open up and claim their truth.
I so resonate with that topic. I really have lived a lifelong journey of reclaiming my voice. And so that this idea is really important to me. And I think that a lot of people think the journey is about, I don't know, a certain way, but I see it as vulnerability. I see it as having the strength to be vulnerable out loud. And that's just one way I express finding my voice. I wonder what else you want to say about that for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I got away from the church growing up, but now there's like certain words in titles from the Bible that come back to me. And one is the truth will set you free. And I feel so strongly about that, because once I found my voice again and started sharing actually with Jeremy and Stephanie and groups, working with them, that it was safe to share and that I wasn't judged, and I could start taking off these masks that I was wearing from all the lies that I had tacked onto myself and my own protection. And to now like speak my truth the way I do, I'm fully out there now online, fully sharing my story, and getting to share this one was like really intense and scary at the same time. But there's so much freedom coming already from knowing that I survived that. I don't care who judges anything. I'm ready to put it out there. I want other women to hear that it's safe to share. It's safe to stand in your power, and to show our children what sacred sexuality is, and the ability to talk about like sex again in a way that's healthy. Like whatever this provokes, it means everything to me to set so many people free who have just made decisions out of fear and what they think that they have to do for society to be safe, when really our safety comes in numbers of people speaking their truth and shamelessly and fearlessly, and finding more people like that. And that's how we're going to change this entire world. And it's so fucking badass.
It totally is. I find myself like taking a deep breath as I listen to you. Like that freedom is in my body. I can feel it from you. I feel it when you share your words. Yeah, exactly. Right there. Thank you so much, Mary Rose. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Suzanne, how about you? Tell us about your chapter.
Right. I am chapter 17. It's the gift or sacred caregiving, the gift of receiving while caring for others. And it's about my journey coming back to my childhood home and caring for my father, who was once a brilliant and very capable man and kind of the rock of the family, and his journey with Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. And so I came and spent the last year plus of his life with him and my mom. And just not only was I here nurturing him, I was rediscovering my own truth, coming back into my childhood home. And I had the opportunity to learn about patterns, where they had come from, and how to recognize and release some of those, and the gift of connecting with nature, and kind of just finding my own self so that I could better nurture and love on my parents, right? And a lot of what Kimberly said rang true for me too. It was I had to nurture myself in order to be more present with them. So it's my journey of what I learned about myself while caring for them, and the gifts that I received while showing up as fully as I was able to for them.
And that topic is such a powerful topic. And I know for people watching this who have been put in a caregiving role, whether they asked to be there or not, that listening to you is going to be really helpful, because again, you're such badasses because you're coming at these things with a certain level of awareness. And if we can gift people with like, oh, what if it was this? What if I could take this thing that looks impossible, that feels really horrible and difficult, but shift it into something? And you did that, and you wrote about it brilliantly. What else do you want to say to those people who have been put in that caregiving role?
What I found for myself, it was a big mindset shift. It was all about perspective. Because every morning I could wake up and I was exhausted. There was just so much. I was also working at the same time, and there's just a lot to manage. And I honestly, I kept thinking about parents, especially single parents of kids with special needs and things that, where this is a lifelong journey. And I knew mine had a timeline, but just each and every day, look for the special moments. It might just be a smile, or it might be a friendly neighbor, or someone. That's another thing, being willing to receive help, because I had neighbors and community members, my parents' friends that would show up. And at first it was like, no, I got this. And I'm like, no, I don't. Please. And thank you for showing up. And so it was a big shift for me. I had learned that was one of the patterns I had to unlearn, was, I can do it all myself. We're good. No, I can release that pattern and accept help. And that's part of it. That's part of how I made it through, and with gratitude and hugs and, all of these things. So notice the people that are there willing to help. Notice the little things. For me, being outside in nature, birds, trees, lizards, anything just that I could tune into to shift my perspective and kind of recenter and ground.
I want everybody to really hear that message about it's okay to ask for help. I remember a time in my own life where there was this weird ass belief that unless I did it on my own, it wasn't going to be called success. And it's so twisted. It's so the opposite, right? And so just kind of want to hold there for a minute and let that sink in. You guys, throughout this whole time with you all and hanging out with Stephanie and Jeremy and listening to you all, I have heard this saying, we laid our hearts on the altar, so many times that I decided to ask you all about it. Kimberly, you first. What does that mean to you? Give me a personal example of how you feel like you laid your heart on the altar.
Well, I think, first of all, I try to live from my heart and make choices from my heart as opposed to my mind. And when we put our heart on the altar, an altar is a sacred space, and it's a space of reverence, and it's also a space that lifts up your perspective. It transports you into a higher perspective, a divine perspective. And when we can see from that higher place, it's the combination of our heart and our mind together, working together from that higher place, that allows us to take inspired action and to trust our own instincts, and also just to know that we're on the right path at any given moment, even if we don't know the outcome. It's at that momentary dropping in to the divine and then moving from that place. So that's to me what it means to put your heart on the altar.
I think you did a fabulous job of tackling that, being the first one to tackle it. And this, so one of the reasons I love these book projects so much is I think you all would agree that we need all the unique voices on a subject, right? We need all the ways to talk about it. We need all the stories, and we need all the medicine and tools. And this book, you guys, is going to, you know, gift you with these stories, very personal stories, and also the medicine that each author is sharing as a practical way for you to do something, to practice something, to do an exercise or a healing, or you know, whatever they're offering. There's such big gifts in this book, but even just listening to you, Kimberly, is a gift about that. Mary Rose, how would you answer it? What has it been like for you to lay your heart on the altar?
To me, it's tapping into complete authenticity and vulnerability, and be willing to go there and open your heart all the way up, no matter how scary it is, for the highest and better good of your own journey, but also for all beings. And it can be very scary. It's like, it's a real determination for the highest good, and the willingness to show up and to be there and to search for that and to allow it to come through and to embody it, and to walk through the world knowing that you're walking on this planet at the very best that you can. And you know, we get carried away with life, and then when we come back and we remember, like, we're going to go through something again, we're putting our heart on the altar again, saying, I'm willing to go through this hardship, I'm willing to go through this new lesson, and I'm willing to learn whatever is here and being offered to me. And you know, an altar, you know, I think it's interesting to share that altars were taken out of people's homes a long time ago in the United States. They had you go to the church to get to the altar. And, you know, then we pay tithing to go there and have this separation. Somebody else has the altar, and there's this unworthiness issue with like tapping into that and having that altar in our hearts, and knowing it's always in our hearts, and that energy and connection to source is right there. And to be able to learn that when we put our heart on the altar, it can be in a physical place, but it can be right here inside of ourselves on repeat. And that's, to me, walking with your heart open. And it's a practice. And the more you do it and you put your heart on the altar, the safer your heart feels to live like this. And you can move through life like that. And it's a beautiful way of living intuitively and with guidance that, to me, is everything.
Yes. Yes, with an exclamation point. Suzanne, what do you want to add to this? What's it been like for you?
Well, this something popped into my head. I can't remember if it was this morning or yesterday morning, but it was about the power I've gained from surrender, which seems counterintuitive. But I've tried so hard my whole life to control things and to get things, you know, make things perfect and do things a certain way. And it was like I was just digging the hole deeper. And those moments where I've laid my heart on the altar, where I've surrendered and given things up to this higher power, whatever you want to call it, this divine energy that flows through everything, those are the moments that I get clarity. And suddenly I feel like I'm not so out of control. It's like there's something else that I can tap into that's guiding me. And so, yeah, it's a strange thing to think to surrender, you empower yourself, but that's how it's worked in my life.
I feel you with that power of surrender for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Glenn, I know it's hard to go last on this question, but what else do you want to add to this amazing chat about laying your heart on the altar?
Well, I really like what Suzanne had to say about surrender, and that's definitely been a big part of my laying my heart on the altar. For me, it started almost 38 years ago when I went to a 12-step program because of drug addiction, and I just had to say, you know, I don't know how to quit. Can you help me? You know, my life was just totally screwed up and out of control. More recently, what I've learned is that, well, it seems like a lot of us look for spiritual enlightenment, okay? And what I've learned is that in order to achieve that, It's an ongoing thing, but I have to go into the shadow side, into the darkness, and be willing to befriend that shadow side of myself and to love that part of myself, uh, without acting out on that shadow stuff. Okay, if that makes any sense.
It does make some sense. I think shadow work is an interesting topic. Oh my gosh, we could be here for another day on that one, couldn't we? But a lot of my healer friends talk about the shadow work, and so I'm glad that Glenn brought that up today. I think that if we're doing anything with these books and these communities that we are building of healers, we're giving people permission to look at that shadow and a way to accept it as part of them, the whole mind, body, soul of that person. And again, deep, tricky, complicated topic here, but I like that as an idea in terms of tying it into laying your heart on the altar, because when you do that, you have to look at all the pieces. You have to look at both sides, all the pieces, up, down, in, out, and you're kind of forced to that place, which, if you can go there, is transformational, right? I mean, this whole book is stories of that. You all are just offering these stories that I know are going to give people a hope they never had before they read it. Okay, so I mean, another thing about this group of authors, all of you, many, if not most of you here, practice a shamanic healing, a shamanic kind of healing. And all of you take, whether you resonate with that term or not, you take a holistic approach to healing and life. So Mary Rose, when it comes to this journey that we're on, why holistic? Like, what makes that really important?
Holistic is going to be in the truth. I mean, it's undistorted. I feel like I work in different modalities, from serving living water now to the planet, rehydrating the planet, and getting people tapped into their consciousness and connection to the planet, to plant medicines, to just breath work, and being able to access more consciousness through a safe place. And holistic, I just don't want distortion. Like, I'm trying to get my purity back, so I have a clean mind and a clean heart, and so I can live and flow that way. And that's my whole desire.
And I think when you guys think of it in the way that Mary Rose is talking about, it's like you're cleaning out your pipes for the flow. You want room. And when you go at this holistically, you get to do a certain kind of cleaning out, for a better, faster, clearer, whatever flow. You're giving me that visual. I'm not sure why the flow is coming. Suzanne, how about you for this one? Like, why holistic? Why has that been important on your journey?
I think part of what I think about when I think about holistic is the whole picture, right? So, and when you're talking about spirituality, it's not just the body, but the mind, spirit, soul, the whole thing, and getting all of those to work in communion. So you're clearing out, like Mary Rose said, and that's clearing out old emotional junk, that's clearing out physical, whether you've been eating junk food and your body's just ailing, right? There's just so much clearing out, but looking at the whole picture, making sure that everything's working in communion. We are organisms within ourselves, and then we are also part of the whole world and universe. So everything, I think, looking at the bigger picture, how everything is interconnected or even intraconnected, and having that flow from that, there's no blockages along the way once you clear out all of these different aspects of it and look at the bigger picture and allow for that full connection and flow through everything, between everything. For me, I think of the big picture and everything together, how we all work. We're each unique individuals, but we work together as one. So it's kind of the bigger picture.
Glenn, how about you? What would you add to this about that holistic journey?
Well, for me, I have tried the more contemporary, I guess, acceptable modalities for healing, and they never worked for me. And so I had to try some alternative methods, and especially the breath work. I had horrible PTSD, and the breath work is the only thing that helped me with that PTSD. And I had tried everything from medication to several different kinds of therapy. Uh, um, and what's important for me is I have some rituals that have evolved over time, and that keep me connected with spirit that I do on a daily basis. So.
I think so. You know, breathwork is something that you all are going to learn more about throughout the different chapters, and different authors are definitely talking about it. Stephanie and Jeremy are master facilitators of that particular modality, and there are also several different ways you can go about learning about breathwork. There are different ways to practice it as well, but since Glenn brought that up, I just wanted to say to our viewers, you know, this is a powerful, profound modality. And you heard him say it. I tried everything, and that was what worked. And so I just want to repeat it, Glenn, because I want people to understand that there are holistic alternatives that are powerful medicine. And I want you all to be open to these possibilities, right? It's one of the missions of my whole company is to help you understand what's out there, what's possible for you. Okay, Kimberly, you're last on this one. Why holistic in your mind?
Well, you started out by talking about shamanism, and shamanism is very much based in the elements: water, earth, fire, and air. And this also very much dovetails with astrology. Astrology takes into consideration those four elements, and then ether, I would say, is the fifth, spirit. And when we live from a place where we put equal emphasis on all of these elemental parts of our life, water is emotions. And many times air is our brain. So many times we overthink and disconnect ourselves from our emotions and how something feels. And fire is inspiration, but without being grounded in the earth and taking physical action, nothing can manifest. So it's just really important to balance all of the energies in our lives and to work with all of them and to honor all of them equally, so that we can be a holistic human being working with nature in a way that spirit imagined for us when we came to the planet.
I've learned more about elements in this last several months with a class that I have been taking, and so I love you just gave us a whole mini tutorial on all of those, you guys. I hope you were paying attention there. But yeah, balancing, but also just simply understanding that they matter and they affect each other. And you might have a big amount of energy in one and not in another, and that imbalance can affect the flow of the cycle, which I kind of geek out on this now that I know a little too much about it to be dangerous, right? But thank you, Kimberly, for that. All right, you guys. So I have one more for you. It might seem like the obvious question of the day, but Suzanne, what does it mean to you to be a sacred rebel?
For me, it's really tapping into my truth, to letting go of all of those things that were handed to me my entire life by everyone else, whether it's parents or community or school or whatever, and coming back to myself and then standing boldly in that. No matter what anyone else thinks or believes, if I step forward in my truth, even if I'm afraid, but I'm brave enough to do it, whatever that looks like, that to me is my sacred rebel, stepping forward.
I love it. I love her. Glenn, how about you? What does it mean to you to be a sacred rebel?
For me, it's pretty simple. It's walking through my fears and standing up for what I believe in.
Yes. He makes it sound so simple, doesn't he? It's quite a
That's it.
journey. Yeah, exactly. It is. It is simple. Maybe some days not easy. Awesome, Glenn. And honestly, y'all, when you start to read the stories in this book, you'll get the explanations. Hopefully, they're going to resonate in another level way for all of you. Kimberly, how about you? What's it mean to you to be a sacred rebel?
Yes to all that's already said. And as I said earlier, living from your heart. This is a little bit redundant because Suzanne already talked about this, but living from your heart and having the courage to do that, even if it looks completely different from what everybody else is doing. And having the courage to be you. Just to be fully you. Every single person on this planet is a unique individual. And we've been socialized to be homogenous, to look the same. And it's a time on the planet now where we each are meant to shine our own light as bright as we possibly can without fear. And so, yeah, that's a sacred rebel for me.
I love it. All right, Mary Rose. Your
Okay.
last step today. How about you?
Yay! Oh my God, well, I just love being a sacred rebel. First of all, I think it's an honor to be a sacred rebel because that's true badassery of the heart, if you ask me. It means you're going to stand in your fucking power because you know your truth is real, and you're going to go into those fires and you're going to make that diamond even shinier, and you're going to become a leader through your pain, and you can alchemize, and your truth matters, your feelings matter, and you stand your ground on everything your heart tells you to do, and you fucking go for it, and you fucking do it with all the love that you can muster, and do it over and over and over again.
You had me at badassery, girl. You're good. I just don't know how to say thank you to you all, you know, whether you know it or not, being with you, spending time with you, and Teo, you, all the rest of the authors, Stephanie and Jeremy, in such sacred space, both external and internal and inner circle. It just was such a gift. And I thank you so much for what you do in the world, for who you are, and for being here today to share it with everyone. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Laura.
So for everybody watching, I know that, you know, maybe you got the goosebumps while you were listening once or twice. Maybe you got curious. You're resonating with what one of these authors is talking about. Just drop down into our show notes because they're all hooked up with their links and sites down there. And this is so much more than a book, you guys. It is a community of people who really care. And they're very generously there for you all to take that next step with you, to help answer that question, to maybe continue the conversation from today. So go explore and find all the awesomeness that they are up to, because it's a lot. And of course, you're invited to our book launch party. We're going to have that on June 2nd at 10 a.m. Eastern. I have some information down below where you can find the Zoom. And if you happen to be listening to this interview after that date, well, that means the book is ready on Amazon. So you should hop over there and grab your copy. Lastly, today, everyone, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. I love we should end every show like that. Let's do that first. Okay, good.